Under the Houses of the Oireachtas Enquiries, Privileges and Procedures Act 2013, certain new standing orders are required to provide the framework of an Oireachtas inquiry to be established, operate and report. These standing orders have been drafted in accordance with requirements of the Act. Their legal content has been considered in detail and they have been discussed and approved by members of the Committee on Procedure and Privileges, chaired by Kehoe Sean Barrett. The standing orders are now before the Dáil for approval. Once in place, a framework will exist for future Oireachtas inquiries to be established. Enhancing the role and powers of the Oireachtas committees is at the heart of the Government's reform agenda. The House of the Oireachtas Enquiries, Privileges and Procedures Act 2013 and the standing orders before the House today are part of that. Since taking office less than 3 years ago, this Government has established a new Oireachtas committee structure, encouraged more public involvement in lawmaking by introducing the pre-legislative stage of committee, and will give committees additional roles in the budget process and with a post-enactment review of legislation. The standing orders before the Dáil this evening make provisions in 4 areas: the replacement of a chair of an inquiry committee, bias in relation to the subject matter of an inquiry, expanded terms of reference of Committee on Procedure and Privileges, and the gateway mechanism, which includes provisions on the consideration of inquiry reports. The first change is to Standing Order 90. This provides that where the chair of an inquiry committee is to be replaced, the Houses of the Oireachtas will appoint the chair. Under the normal circumstances, the replacement of Oireachtas committee chair will be an election at the committee, but this new standing order is required under section 21-7 of the Act. The next change requires 2 new standing orders, 97A and 97B, which relate to the concept of objective bias. Addressing the issue of bias is vital, not only to the functioning and fairness of the Oireachtas inquiry, but also how that inquiry is perceived, not only by those involved in any inquiry, but also the wider public. The test of bias is that set out in the Act, namely where the perception of bias will arise in a reasonable person in relation to any connection, dealing or utterance on the part of the relevant member or in any other relevant circumstances. The CPP, as the appropriate committee under the Act, can consider any issue of bias and make recommendations to the Dáil as to whether bias exists or not, and it is then for the Dáil to remove a member from inquiry of bias if bias exists. Expanding the terms of reference of the CPP, the changes of Standing Order 99 expand the remit of CPP in line with provisions of the Act. CPP will have responsibility for evaluating inquiry proposals and making recommendations thereon to the House. It is still the House that will establish any Oireachtas inquiry, and after it is finalised, order publication of the report. CPP acts as an oversight committee where an inquiry is undertaken, including regulating issues of bias, approving requests on compellability, and providing guidelines on conducting inquiries and other committee business where compellability is involved. Guidelines for the operation of Oireachtas inquiries are currently being prepared and will come before the CPP in the coming days for discussion. Proposed Standing Order 107A and 107G outline how the gateway system will work. Number 1, the committee proposing the conduct inquiry will make a proposal to CPP. Number 2, the CPP will consider the proposal and make a recommendation by Dáil to make a recommendation by report to the Dáil. And number 3, that report must be considered before any inquiry terms of reference are agreed by the Dáil. An Oireachtas Banking Enquiry will no doubt be the first test of this new system. Such an inquiry must not impact on cases before the courts, but focus on issues surrounding economic collapse and that have never been fully explored and established the facts. Any banking inquiry would need to be split into a number of modules by the very strict terms of reference. The people who made the decisions that led to the economic collapse must come before the elected representatives of the people of Ireland. It is important for the Irish people to hear directly from those who made the decisions and brought about the economic collapse as to why they acted and the way they did. Any banking inquiry carried out by the Oireachtas will be established under the new structure, but the impact of these changes is wider than just that one inquiry. The Act and these standing orders will be available to facilitate the establishment of an inquiry by any Oireachtas committee once approved by CPP and the Dáil. Irish parliamentarians from across the political divide will have an opportunity to work together, regardless of political affiliation, as part of an Oireachtas inquiry and on behalf of the Irish people. This is just the next step in an ongoing process of political reform, a process that may take decades, designed to rebuild the public's shattered confidence in our political structure. To thank the members opposite for their variant contributions. It's horrifying to think that there's only one party objected and are distancing themselves from what we're bringing about here and changing the standing orders. And Deputy Kehoe couldn't even say that he welcomed this banking inquiry. And as that too often I actually praise Deputy Finian McGrath, but I have to say he had an excellent contribution when he said about finding out exactly what happened in the past and the truth and the facts, and about learning for the future. Not even Deputy Kehoe could even bring himself to say that. Now, maybe you were hiding something that maybe no one else in this House are aware of. So, but what we are here is, what we're doing here is that.
Sorry, are you talking about a point of order?
I am talking about it.
Yeah, please.
I indicated at no time that we were opposing. I said at the outset that I was highlighting the difficulties that I see with this particular inquiry, and not just in the context of banking, but across all issues with regard to any committee.
Yes, that's very clear.
And the import of your snide remarks.
Deputy Kehoe, please. Deputy Kehoe. Deputy Kehoe.
You should actually
just a Minister State to conclude.
You should actually listen back to your remarks and to your contribution. So, what you spoke about democracy. We're in a democratic parliament here. We're in government, and this is where we are. This is what every day you said about. Every day you enter this chamber, you're entering a political chamber. But we want to separate politics from this committee.
Without interruption, please.
Deputy Creighton spoke about what the Taoiseach said, and she quoted quite rightly what the Taoiseach said when he was announcing the setting up of the Banking Enquiry. And this is an opportunity to showcase the committee system. And what we're doing here is changing the standing orders to give this committee the powers and the opportunity to showcase what we can do as a Dáil, as a parliament, and as elected representatives. And what the general public here are looking for is the truth of what happened in the past. Let that be political decisions, let it be policy decisions, or whatever that is. And this is about learning for the future, to make sure that we do not make the same mistakes that have been made in the past. And the Oireachtas Banking Enquiry will no doubt be the first test to what we're changing here today. And we have our own. This is about findings of fact. This is not about finding somebody proving him or her guilty, or is he or whatever. We have our own court system within our own constitution, and as an Oireachtas, we respect that. What this committee is being set up to do is findings of fact, is of exactly what happened, where it happened, how it happened, who made the decisions, and why that decision was made. And to make sure that those decisions, as I repeat again, to make sure that those decisions are not repeated again. And we find that the economic collapse that this country has witnessed over the past number of years. And there is general agreement within the Chamber that members of Parliament, through the committee system, should have an inquiry and should play a major role in finding out what has happened. And the passing of the Houses of the Oireachtas Enquiries and Privileges and Procedures Bill, Act 2013, which was last July, was a positive step, I believe, in that it gave direction in where we are today. And the Dáil's approval on these standing orders today will move the matter forward to the next stage, and for the Senate to approve the standing orders of CPP and the approval of the necessary guidelines. And this government has been very proactive about building this inquiry. It's going back as far as when we had the referendum in the fall of 2011. So to say that this is some political stunt or something like that, you did. Just go back. Just go back to the listen. Go back and read what you actually read. You said into the record of the House. This is going back. We gave the people an opportunity in a referendum of 2011 to start this banking inquiry. Unfortunately, to the regret, I believe, that we didn't get that referendum over the line. And then we had to reflect on exactly what happened. We brought the bill forward last year. The Taoiseach announced the banking inquiry in September, and we're changing the standing orders now. And this is an opportunity for the committee system to showcase exactly what the houses of the Oireachtas can do. And people are crying out for reform, and I believe this is the part, and this is the beginning of that reform. So I commend
Sorry, we're concluding. We're concluding the.
That's you never interfere in anything in your life. That's why we are where we are. Yeah. But anyway, I commend the change of standing orders.
Thank you, Minister. That concludes the debate, and